the question that I'm getting from everyone, from ministers, officials, that everyone's trying to answer is, how long is this going to go on for? Because that dictates how bad it is going to be when the current energy price cap comes in June. People are already talking about a kind of £300 rise in energy bills. At that point, possibly more. So it's all kind of focused forward-facing on that June bump when the energy price cap comes off and how bad it's going to be. But look, they are really worried, Kate, just speaking candidly about it.
Let's get the latest from Westminster, shall we, with the Times political editor, Steve Swinford. Morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Oh, there's a lot going on today, isn't there? Where do we start? Oil prices. I think we were talking to Steve Reid about this earlier on the programme. And then we had a big energy provider on just after an hour later, basically saying there is no way of guaranteeing this £150 saving that the government is promising to people because bills are much more likely to go up than down. How worried are they in Downing Street about this?
I think they're very worried. I mean, other than the obvious risk to civilians in the region, this is the top issue in number 10 at the moment, the cost of living. So when they had about just over a week ago now a big National Security Council meeting, so that was a meeting with all the top ministers, a very secret meeting, defence chiefs and all of that, there were two decisions were taken. One was not to immediately allow the US to use our air bases, but two, there was a very extensive discussion about what would come next, and indeed it has all come to pass. Ed Miliband, the Net Zero and Energy Secretary, was warning we were going to get a spike in oil prices. He was warning that that would lead to higher bills, and the government will want to avoid that at all costs because ultimately people vote on the economy, and this government's hopes of turning its fortunes around lay on addressing the cost of living. And instead this morning we've got rising oil prices which will lead to rising energy bills. We've got traders now forecasting increases in interest rates later this year from the Bank of England, and we're also going to have wider price inflation across the board. I'm sorry to sound dismal this morning, but these are the economic consequences of war writ large.
And do you get the sense, Steve, that ministers are on top of this? Because, again, Steve Reid told us, well, look, there's no immediate panic. I'm not going to come on your radio station and worry people. But I think it's fair to say people are worried and they can read the news. They can see the direction of travel. Is the government prepared?
The government has a window of time because of something called the energy price cap, which caps the price of energy bills till June. So they are going to work behind the scenes to try to come up with a solution. But look, the question that I'm getting from everyone, from ministers, officials, that everyone's trying to answer is, how long is this going to go on for? Because that dictates how bad it is going to be when the current energy price cap comes in June. People are already talking about a kind of £300 rise in energy bills. At that point, possibly more. So it's all kind of focused forward-facing on that June bump when the energy price cap comes off and how bad it's going to be. But look, they are really worried, Kate, just speaking candidly about it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, and that's the question nobody can answer. But I suppose, Steve, that number there that you've mentioned, it's symbolic in a way and not in a good way for the government, because they came in promising £300 off energy bills, and we could be in a situation where they're about to go up by £300.
I think that commitment is firmly off the table now.
Yeah.
Like, given what we're seeing with events here, I cannot imagine a world in which we ever get to that. But what we certainly are going to, this ongoing conflict with no sign of resolution. Look, Trump's terms, what he wants, if you take what he says publicly seriously, which I think we have to a degree, he wants complete surrender. Well, there doesn't seem to be any sign of complete surrender at this point in time. Drones are still being fired. It's choosing its own leader. Trump also said he wanted to choose the next leader. So they have been talking about kind of a month, 4 weeks, even on that kind of basis. So we're just over a week into this now. That is going to do severe damage, and Gulf countries are going to stop exporting gas. They're going to stop exporting other forms of energy, and it's going to get very, very competitive on the market for what is out there. So prices will have to rise.
Yeah, the Prime Minister is currently on a visit to a community centre in London. He's making some remarks, and we'll bring you those in the next few moments. But Steve, I have to ask you, obviously there is a lot going on. One of the biggest things that we've learnt overnight is that the Prime Minister and the President, Donald Trump, finally had a phone call 8 days, I think, after the last one. Do we know how long it lasted for?
That's all we know at the moment. We know that it was 20 minutes long, and what I can tell you about the readouts of calls with Donald Trump and Keir Starmer is that they've got shorter and shorter and shorter. And what number 10 currently sends out is just a point of fact that they spoke. And what we learned previously when they were getting getting shorter was that these calls had become pretty bitter, that Trump had been going for Starmer in them, and there was a lot of anger. We haven't had a proper readout of this call yet, but it wouldn't surprise me, given what he's been saying publicly, if that was what he was also saying privately. But I guess, look, a 20-minute call is better than a kind of 2-minute hang-up, but it doesn't bode particularly well. And that's not necessarily, in the short term, a terrible thing for Keir Starmer, because this conflict with Iran is very, very unpopular with the public. 71% of voters, we did a YouGov poll at the weekend, said they would be opposed to us intervening. I guess the point is that in the longer context, if it does damage the special relationship and we therefore get unfavourable trading terms in future or other issues kind of coming down the line, then that is going to become a sticking point. But right now, I think there's an argument that Keir Starmer's decisions are partly guided by the fact he knows that this conflict is very unpopular. Before
we let you go, Steve, there's obviously a lot internationally going on, but there are a couple of things just to point out this morning that there may or may not be, well, I think there will be a vote on social media on banning phones for under 16s, and there's a bit of a row again brewing on jury trials.
Yeah, so both of these are quite big issues. There are a lot of Labour backbenchers that want a ban on social media for under 16s. The government is saying, well, look, we put this out to consultation. That consultation won't come back till the summer, the end of the summer. So they will probably be voting against that. And that will make a lot of Labour MPs very uncomfortable, because if you're waiting till the end of the summer to decide what to do about social media, we're now at this weird state in this Parliament, Kate, where everything that gets pushed further and further back may never happen, because you suddenly get to the end of the Parliament, you run out of time. And then jury trials, there's also a kind of clear and present Labour rebellion on that. So we should expect some action over that, I think.
Steve, how many reviews exist? I mean, I don't need to give me a number now, but as I sit here listening to people over the course of the programme, I feel that almost every single government announcement is suffixed by, oh, and then we'll put it out to consultation. Is that normal? It just feels that this is a government of review.
It is normal. I always remember back in the day when Sajid Javid was, I think, Community Secretary. The Times did an amazing front page, which was the sheer volume of consultations and reviews, because it's the default government response to difficult questions that it doesn't really want to answer. So, look, social media ban, Keir Starmer clearly was opposed to it. He's got significant qualms of it. We were told privately he'd been telling people that there are significant benefits to social media for young people, which is not where his backbenchers are, but obviously there's a lot of strong feeling about it. Well, we'll just stick it out to a consultation, to a long review, and then suddenly you do run out of time, and you can actually, there are hundreds of these reviews, hundreds of these consultations that go nowhere, and it's to basically deal a lot of the time. Sometimes it's obviously correct that you have proper consultations to check that, kick the tires of policies, but when you don't actually have a policy or a direction, it just means it becomes a mañana. It just goes on, and that's what we're seeing here.
Steve, always great to have you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
That is Steve Swinford, the Times political editor.